Hey, in this one I will present my Neovim config, which is the editor I use, because some of you have asked about it, and I think it's nice that more and more people use Vim or Neovim, but it's a bit tricky to get started in it, so maybe this can help you. So if you don't know what Neovim is, it's a fork of Vim that wants to make it more modern. So by rewriting parts of it, mostly removing the Vim script language, which is the scripting language you use to configure Vim, which is terrible. Yeah, and it also adds like more modern editor functionality like an LSP, which is a thing that tells you like when as you're editing, this is an error, this is a compile error, or stuff like this, or like auto completion, so on, which is stuff you could have in Vim, but it's easier to set it up in Neovim, in my opinion. So to launch Neovim, you do nvim, like so, and then as you can see, it looks exactly like Vim. And all the shortcuts by default and so on are exactly mostly the same as Vim. But since you want to modify the config is in .config /nvim. And then here you can see that there is an init.lua file. And so init.lua is your new vimrc, basically. And there is also a Lua folder, and every single Lua file in this folder will get included every time you spin up Neovim. So you can put you can split your config into multiple files that way. And as you can see, let's look at as you can see, yeah, all of my files are actually symbolic links to somewhere else on my system, because I like to keep all my configs in one Git repository, but you don't have to do this. You can just have a regular init.lua file. So my init.lua is basically I migrated my vimrc to Lua, because I prefer this language to Vimscript. But actually I should mention that if you have an existing vimrc for which you've worked hard, you can actually just, Neovim is like a drop-in replacement for Vim, so you can still use your old vimrc or Vim scripts for Neovim. But I think it's better to migrate, because this looks a lot cleaner. So those are the options that you can set. So in Vim you would do set, then map leader, or what, let's say the hidden, and then you would say you would set hidden like this, I think, to like set the hidden option. But in Neovim you do vim.opt.hidden is equal to true. And I'm not gonna go into details about all of those options, but I've made some nice comments as to why I want them. And I will put a link in the description to my config, so if you're curious about each of those, you can look them up. Then you can see that in the Lua directory there was a plugins. There was this file, plugins.lua, and I am actually including it here by doing require. So that's how you include files in your config. And so yeah, that's just setting a bunch of options here, setting the tab widths, setting stuff for searching. Then there is auto comments, which are extremely weird in Vimscript and quite tricky to do. But in Neovim there is an interface for this, which is vim.api.nvim create autocomment. And then you can look at the documentations of those again in more details, but you can actually, yeah, the same thing as in Vim, where you have a pattern, you have an O group, and you have an event. And then you can have actually a callback function, which is really nice, meaning you can execute any Lua code whenever there is an autocommand trigger. So if you have any autocommands, I would recommend switching to this as well. Next, yeah, I mean, that's just setting some options and auto commands. And as you can see, that's it, because most of usually you have this in your VMRC, but then just below it, you have your actual plugins config. But actually now you can put your, so if you go into Lua and the plugins, and the plugin manager I use for Neovim is called Packer. Let me see if I can find it on the internet. So packer.nvim. I will put a link in the description as well, and you can follow the instructions, but it's quite intuitive. And so you just need to run this startup function of Packer. And then the way you install a plugin is just by doing use and then the plugin URL. And it assumes that it starts with github.com, like so. Otherwise, you can put a URL to any Git repository or Git repository on your local machine as well. So yeah, so that's very useful. And that's the base of it. And so, for example, here I import the Packer. Here I have plugins to move argument sideways in a method. So if I do this, I move the arguments to the left or to the right. This is just to, I don't know, remove or rename a file or stuff like this. But I won't go over every single plugins because some of them are rather small. I will just go directly to the interesting stuff. So first is, how do you get beautiful syntax highlighting like this? Because even in Vim, you don't get those cool, I don't know, it's a very good syntax highlighting, because I think Vim does regex syntax highlighting, but here there is a real syntax parser called TreeSetter. And if you don't know TreeSetter, it's an external program that actually it's a parser generator tool. Basically, it parses any programming language and returns you a syntax tree. And with this, you can do syntax highlighting. And so there is a Neovim plugin for it. So you need to install TreeSetter with your package manager or just by following the instructions on their websites. And then you also need to install the, whoops, that's not the one, Nvim TreeSetter. You need to install the Neovim plugin for it. So yeah, and as you can see in the little demo, you can see without TreeSetter, so there is decent highlighting, and then with TreeSetter, it already looks a lot better. And so you just do use TreeSetter, and then you have for each of those use, you can have a config key, which will be a function that is executed whenever the plugin gets loaded, which is really nice because you can split the configuration for each of your plugins instead of having everything in one file like I had in my VMRC. And here you can see I configure which languages I want syntax highlighting for, and then you can read more on the README of TreeSetter to know which of those options are useful to you. But of course, highlight enable will do the syntax highlighting in TreeSetter. And so yeah, that's rather simple. You just install TreeSetter and you have all of a sudden very beautiful syntax highlighting. Next is the LSP. So if you don't know what an LSP is it's a language server protocol, and a language server is what will say to your it's a thing where you give it code and it tells you if there is an error or if like the available tokens to do autocompletion or yeah, how to search for token like this class is at this line and so on and so on. And this is basically like if you here I made a syntax error and you see the virtual red text on the right, which of course you have in most editors. You can have that in Neovim as well now. And to configure this, you just have to go into LSP config. So there is an official plugin called LSP config, which will set up a language server for you. I mean, which will help you set up a language server. So what you do is you need to do. So there is nvim lsp config, and again you follow the way to install it, and then there is a big file of configurations which tells you for all of those language servers how you can configure them. So for example, if I search Python, where is my, I think it was called Pyrite. Voilà, okay. So Pyrite, which is an LSP, not an LSP, a language server made by Microsoft for Python. And so you can do require lsp config pyrite setup. And that's what I have somewhere, I think. Python. Oh no, I have pylsp, but it doesn't matter, it's another one. But as you can see, you just do lsp config, pylsp setup, and then you can have a bunch of options for it. For example, I have some stuff for Flake 8 or like the maximum length. And that's how you set up each language server, which you have to install besides Neovim. Like the language server itself is something that doesn't come with Neovim. So for example, for pylsp, you would need to do pip install pylsp, and then I don't know, I think that's it. So it doesn't work on my system because I already have it installed, but you would have to like independently install each of those. So yeah, and as you can see, I have one for Golang, I have one for Rust, I have one for Python, for Lua there is also a good one, and yeah, generally if you look at quickly on the internet, there is always an LSP. There is even one for YAML, so yeah, and you can have a function called onAttach, which you will pass to every single of your LSP config. You can see onAttach is equal to onAttach, and here as well, which is like whenever the language server gets started, it will launch this function, which will basically like declare a bunch of mappings for you. So here you can see I have a bunch of mappings here. For example, if I press Shift K, it will give me like a definition of this function, like the description of this function. And so those bindings will be common for every single language server. This is getting a bit complex, but that's a way you can customize your experience using a language server. Yeah, the next is the way I have a fuzzy finder, like so. So if I go into instead, let's say git.files, and then I launch Neovim, and here, as you can see, I did Control P, and it gave me a fuzzy finding for all my files in this current repository. And so you can see that as I search, as I type, it's giving me all my files and filtering them. So if I go back to the plugins one, that's how I can select it. And it's not only for files, because if you do, I think it was like so, you can see that I have one for that is compatible with the LSP. And so if I search for, I don't know, I mean, in Vim it's a bit weird, but if I go into, let's say, what is a good one? This maybe? Oops, not V, I wanted to CD, and V, and then let's say go mode, and then maybe there is, like, can I go? Doesn't work in that one because maybe I don't have it installed. Plugins. But as you can see, you can jump to tokens. That's what I meant earlier. So find, and then you can go into this file, which is where this function is defined, and so on and so on and so on. And so yeah, and you can do this for I think Telescope is a very general plugin where you can, yes, there is a cool one. So if you can do a live grep, so it's like a grep, but as you go, So here you can see that if I type find, it will grep all my files for the find keyword, or I don't know. There is a grep for grep, and you can see that it searches in every single file for those characters. Like you can basically use telescope for a lot of things, and it's quite nice. Next is auto-completion, and for that I use Nvim CMP comp. I don't know. And yeah, that's a nice auto-completion thing, and it's very modular. So the way you configure it is by, well, first including it in your plugins, and then there is a bunch of like add-ons, I mean plugins for the plugins, and so you can require other plugins for it. And for example, there is one that is for compatibility with your language server protocol. Then there is one for file path. So if I do this, I start with a slash. As you can see, I have auto completion for my binaries. So if I do usr lib, and then there is xorg, because why not, and then slash, and then it will search, and so on and so on. So this one maybe, and yeah, okay. And it also works with a local file, like so. There is one for the buffer, so this is the text that you currently type. So if I type this in the current buffer, then I start typing it as well, it will recognize that it was in the, I already typed it, and so maybe I want to type it again. And there is one for LSP signatures, so that's just a regular function completion. And those ones I don't remember, maybe this is specific for Lua or something. Yeah, that's pretty much it. As you can see, there is a huge configs, but that I customized. But I don't think you have to do this. This is very specific to me. And of course, the way to learn Neovim and so on is to make it your own. So visit the documentation of all of those tools and yeah, dig into it and make it your own. I just wanted to give you I wanted to give you a quick overview. That is already 17 minutes, but I wanted to give you like maybe the names and how to get started on your journey to make a great Neovim config. But definitely not like go into all of this into huge details. Oh, there is a cool one, command.vim. It does what it says. So if you put, if you say gcc, it will command the current line, and you can select multiple lines, do gc, and comment a bunch of them. That's always nice. My color scheme for Neovim and also Vim was Groovebox, which is great. It's like a chill theme. It feels like you're next to a fire all day. And my status line is called Lua line, which again it does its job. It has and you can customize it with cute icons. So for example, here in the bottom right, I have a little penguin and a little Lua sign, and it's compatible with a multiple color scheme. Let me see, random stuff that I can include. Yeah, no, that's about it, I think. There is stuff for integrations with Git as well. There was an attempt, this plugin, I would have liked it, but it's not working. It's like a beta plugin for, you know, in VS Code. That is the only thing I actually like about VS Code that is missing in Neovim, is that you can very easily edit a remote repository. So you can connect to SSH, and then you have a folder, and it's basically like it's via SSH, but you have, like, you're editing it on your local machine, and it automatically synchronizes, and you still have the auto completion and all those nice features. And this is an attempt to reproduce that on Neovim, but it's not quite working, at least at the last time I tried it. It's called distant.nvim. There is also stuff to like have Jupyter notebooks in it, but again, it was working decently, and I don't use Jupyter notebook anymore. Jupyter notebooks, and yeah, besides that, I think that was it. There is a bunch of formatters. Yeah, no, that's about it for my config. As you can see, nothing too fancy. And yeah, I think I mean it's a bit dumb that I mentioned that at the end of the video, but there is stuff to get you started more easily. If you don't care about customizing your config, I think there is a chat.nvim or something like that, nv chat, which is basically just a config pre-made for you. That's it. And so yeah, it acts more like a regular editor, and you don't have to do anything, which is a bit lame, I think. But if you're lazy and just want to look cool, that's something. Otherwise, for the LSP config thing, which can be very cumbersome to install, I know I mean, I like Paint, but if you don't, there is mason.nvim, I think, which will make things way easier for you. So it's a way to manage LSPs, and it does most of the stuff for you. So you just it's like a bit more plug and play. But yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, I hope for the two guys that watch me that use Neovim, I hope this was useful. And for the rest of you, learn Vim, learn Neovim, and make your editing experience better. But yeah, that's it for this one, and see you.